When you think of the grandest monster in mythology or legend, which comes to your mind? Perhaps the giant behemoth or leviathan from Jewish mythology. Maybe the great cobra Apophis from Egyptian mythology, or even Typhon from Greek mythology. All of those would be great choices, but what if I told you of a creature so large that from head to tail it encircles the entire earth? In Norse mythology, there was such a creature, and his name was Jörmungandr, the World Serpent. Of all Norse mythology, Jrmungandr is one of its oldest entities, dating back to the 9th century, in Bragi Boddasson's Ragnar's poem. In the poem, Jörmungandr is mentioned as the catch of Thor's fishing trip, which is one of the 3 encounters Jörmungandr had with Thor. Usually depicted as either a great snake or a sea serpent, Jörmungandr is the son of Loki and the giantess Angrboda, as well as brother to Hela, the goddess of death, and the giant wolf Fenrir. While his 3 siblings were still very young, and in Jörmungandr's case still very small, Odin became fearful of them because of a prophecy known as Ragnarok. A world-ending prophecy that foretold Jörmungandr as the killer of Odin's son. Deciding to get rid of the problem before it could happen, Odin took Jörmungandr and threw him into the sea of the flat earth, hoping that he would drown. Unfortunately for Odin, that was not what happened. Jörmungandr grew in the ocean of Midgard and eventually grew so large that he could surround the earth and grasp his tail with his mouth. Thus the name, the World Serpent. Banished from his home and family, you would think Jörmungandr would want revenge on Odin. But surprisingly, Thor, the god of thunder, is the serpent's archenemy. Now, Jrmungandr appears in 3 stories within Norse mythology, and in all 3 stories, Jrmungandr is always in conflict with Thor. So perhaps Jrmungandr's hate comes from Thor's actions in these stories. Perhaps it's even fate. In the first story, Thor, Loki, and Thor's servant arrive at the castle of the giant Utgard Loki. Thor asks if he and his friends can spend the night at the stronghold, but the giant scoffs at them and begins to taunt them. The giant then goes on to explain that if they wish to stay, then they must prove their worth in a series of competitions. Both Loki and Thor's servant fail in their competitions, and once it becomes Thor's turn, Thor decides to challenge the giant to a drinking contest. So the giant hands Thor a drinking horn, but 3 times in a row, Thor cannot empty the drink within the horn. Laughing at Thor's pitiful attempt, the giant mocks Thor and even suggests that he is so weak he wouldn't be able to lift the giant's cat. Angered with the giant's mocking, Thor walks to the cat and begins to lift. Pushing his entire strength to the limit, Thor is only able to lift a single paw of the cat off the ground. Laughing again at the struggling Thor, the giant tells the group that they can stay for their glorious show of effort. The next day, as the group leaves the castle, the giant appears at the entrance and tells them how he used tricks and magic to win the contest. He tells Thor that the drinking horn was connected to the sea, and so of course Thor couldn't empty it. He then went on to explain that he disguised Jörmungandr as the cat, and that he was honestly impressed that Thor was able to lift him even a little. Furious about being tricked, Thor rushed to attack the giant with his hammer. But suddenly the giant in his castle disappeared. Now, because Thor was never able to find the giant again, his anger was transferred and focused towards Jörmungandr. In return, Jörmungandr was insulted that Thor tried to pick him up, and so Jörmungandr gained hatred towards Thor. Thus began their animosity. The second story is when Thor goes fishing with the giant Hymir. Hymir refuses to give Thor any bait, so Thor decapitates Hymir's biggest ox and puts the head on the hook. After a successful day of fishing at Hymir's favorite spot, Hymir suggests that they call it a day. But Thor refuses and begins to row the boat further and further away from land. He tells Hymir that he plans to catch the World Serpent so that he can kill him and also settle his anger from the previous story. Ignoring Hymir's numerous protests, Thor throws the fishing line with the ox head into the water. To Thor's joy, Jörmungandr takes the bait, and with a great heave, Thor pulls the great serpent to the surface. Jrmungandr thrashes around, making the sea rage and almost causes the boat to capsize multiple times. As Thor pulls Jrmungandr closer, Hymir, fearing that Thor might cause Ragnarok preemptively, takes his knife and cuts the line. Sighing with relief, Hymir never notices the furious swing of Thor's hammer coming for his head. The final story, which includes Jörmungandr, is the world-ending prophecy, known as Ragnarok. Jörmungandr's role in Ragnarok begins when he releases his tail from his mouth. He then causes the sea to flood and then slithers onto the land to join his brother Fenrir and father Loki with his army of the dead. As they make their way to face the Aesir gods, Jörmungandr releases poison into the air and sea, contaminating both forever. Finally, Jörmungandr and Thor meet on the battlefield and have their long-awaited clash. The battle is ferocious and bloody, but eventually ends with Jörmungandr's death, and with Thor walking away 9 steps before he dies from Jörmungandr's poison. Jörmungandr plays an important role in the stories of Norse mythology as one of the catalysts of Ragnarok, but I can't help but think that if maybe Odin didn't banish/bond Jörmungandr and his siblings, that the deaths of Ragnarok didn't need to happen. Or perhaps Ragnarok was fate and would have happened in a different way. Either way, Jörmungandr is one of the most impressive creatures in all of oral and written history. And there it is. I give you the wild Norse mythology of Jörmungandr, the World Serpent. Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like it and subscribe. I have more videos on Norse mythology and other mythologies coming on the way. So definitely don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so you can keep updated. Until next time on Wild Mythology.